of Beechwood Road. Mr. Luker? Last week, I went up and talked with Mr. Doherty, obtained an agreement with him to go on his property. We went up there on Monday. I had the excavator go up there, start on Monday. The pond on Pond 1 has been dug out. There still needs some work to be done. However, that pond is dug out. Myself and Rick and John Spinella, the excavator, along with Chris Lawton, our engineer, we're up looking at ponds 2 and 3 today. And I was just going over with the town attorney with regards to the easement that goes into those ponds, which we do have access. It's just a matter of can we cut some trees down, etc. And Mr. Cully is going to be checking on that tomorrow. As soon as we get in there with the equipment, we will start working on clearing ponds 2 and 3.
We're going to do that? Town's going to do that?
Our excavator is going to do it, yes. This, we've determined, is going to be quicker, cheaper. During this project, Rick was up there with John Spinella. We've determined that we will also, on town property, construct a road so that in the future we will have easy access to all 3 ponds to get in there and clean these out on an annual basis for maintenance. Because of the road, because of some other things that we're looking at and doing up on 2 and 3, like I said, I would expect that within the next week, 2 and 3 will probably be dug out. However, with the extent of the roads, putting in the forms, etc., on the outflows, I would expect that this would probably be, Rick, 4 or 5 weeks to complete this project. However, he is, John is up there. He's going to stay up there until the project's completed. As I said, he was up there on Monday. We were all up there today. He's working up there. He will stay there until we get that project complete, which is basically going to be phase 2. That being said, I see most of you, or not all of you, from Beechwood. However, we have also taken care of the situation at the bottom of Woodbury. That problem has been resolved. Again, we got John Spinella up there, and that situation that we had at the bottom of Woodbury, off on Woodbury Lane.
So somebody.
Glad you did that, man. I gotta see Chris somebody.
You never find the button.
Always somebody does that.
Very disruptive.
It's a little relief thing. Anyway, that has been resolved. There's a few more things that we're going to be doing with regards to going up the creek, up on that Woodbury territory, making some plateaus up there, which is additional items that we pointed out so that we can help prevent debris from coming down, that creek coming down into Woodbury. That being said, any questions? We have Ken Knudsen, Chris Lawton from Barton & Judas, our engineering firm here. Rick Sherman, our highway superintendent, is there. So with that being said, any questions that you have at this point?
Yeah, you're going to dig out all the culverts that are in those ponds now, or how do you plan on throttling those and
Digging out
channeling the overflow?
You mean the pipes?
From the outfall structures, that? Yeah.
You want to answer that, Ken?
Sure. Going back to the draft design report we've done in 2011, the intent would, let's start with pond 1. Right now it has a 24-inch pipe coming out of it. The intent would be to put an 18-inch.
You're talking pond 1 at the top?
Pond 1 down. Pond 1, 2, 3.
Bottom one has a 12 on it.
Low to high.
Bottom's 12. It's 12 inch.
Okay. That's 12 out. Okay.
The new one calls for 24.
It will be a box.
So you're going to have to dig that out.
Control stature.
Is what I'm getting at. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. So you're going to go to 24 at the bottom.
I believe an 18 was called for in the drainage report, coupled with the new outlet structure, which has an under drain under the pond footprint, and then has orifices designed at a certain elevation, and then the overflow on top of the structure.
Okay. Is the overflow going to be guaranteed to go into that little stream, or is it going to bypass like right now?
Well, the way the ponds are designed, the the overflow structure, the top of that is going to be lower than the top of the berm, basically. Okay. If runoff events exceed the capacity of that overflow structure, or it becomes plugged with debris for whatever reason, there is a notch currently in that detention pond berm, if you will, that acts as an overflow. That needs to stay in place.
Right now, that does not make it into that little stream, I don't believe.
Okay. Any grading improvements at that location would certainly have to direct an overflow into that stream and be stabilized with some sort of riprap, as it is now, so it doesn't wash out of there.
How about the other ponds? What are the outlets from those going to be? Are all going to be 18?
No, there's different sizes, based on the size of the.
Alex, do you remember offhand? Alex Kerr is our, worked with Al on the original model. He's this gentleman over here. He would call what the pipe sizes were in 2 and 3.
Ken, can you have him come up here so
Sure.
board members can see or hear from him also?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I believe they're all 24 outlet pipes, but they've all been signed to handle this going appropriately. We do have the plans here though.
Three is 24.
24 for concrete.
Existing 36 on 2.
Yeah, 2 and 3 are huge right now. It's
Right,
36. 30 or 36.
36. Existing, the 18 on pond 1 is being removed, and it shows a 24-inch.
Okay. So ponds 1 and 3 get a 24-inch pipe. Pond 2 will be maintaining the existing 36-inch pipe.
And again, the amount of flow that enters those pipes is regulated by the new concrete inlet structures that have designed inlets to them, versus now what you see up there is boards, I guess, kind of weir plates, if you will, at the entrances to
Plywood.
these.
Right.
Yes, yeah, so it's going to be,
So you can throttle those outlets, but they are going to be capable of keeping water coming downstream through all rain events until the head wall, the 24-inch head wall, can no longer handle it. And then they're going to stage, or they're all just going to have outlets that are a little bit smaller so that we don't overpower the head wall until all 3 of these ponds are full.
right. What's going on now, based on our modeling of current conditions, is because of the baffle system that's on pond 2 in particular. Pond 2 only uses about 1/3 of its storage capacity before the driving head on that 36-inch pipe. Basically, the flow in equals the flow out, so it doesn't fully utilize the storage. Pond 1 at the lowest again is overtopping at about a 10-year design storm because it's just blowing through too.
And it's small.
Ideally, the way we've modeled this is the outlet structures will function to maximize flow, retention, and storage in 3. It'll stage into 2, which will maximize storage there, which will then, so the highest flows, we've got a basin map here, so out of the 70-acre or 80-acre drainage area that's delineated in blue there, the highest flow rate is coming into pond 3.
All right, so they're going to cascade.
Correct, right. They're basically in series at different elevations.
How do you accomplish that staging? By the height of the overflow? How do you manage that staging? How do you
Regulate?
throttle the flow?
If you look at the 3 different blue basins, sub-basins, if you will there, Dave.
Yeah.
Again, the total Beechwood basin goes out and crosses the road to the south. So the biggest basin is tributary to pond 3. That's the one on the right there. So the highest flow rate goes into pond 3. Okay. Let's say pond 3 berm is here and pond 3 overflow is here. That will fill. It'll start going through the orifices in the outfall structure at a controlled rate.
A controlled rate based on the size of the pipe?
Based on, in this case, the 6-inch square openings that are in this outfall structure will pass so much flow.
Okay.
The rate into that pond will exceed the capacity of those control structures, control openings. It will continue to build to maximize the storage in the basin. Then it hits the top of that outfall structure. It spills into the grate.
Right.
If it exceeds even that, it will continue to fill and then overtop through the notch in the berm. Once it starts going through, so it hits 3, it gets knocked down, those peak rates get knocked down by virtue of those openings.
Correct.
Goes into two, two does the same thing and knocks it down again, maximizes storage in two, and all these are different elevations. Then it flows through the longer channel down into one, which has a similar outflow structure, one being the smallest of the three ponds. So yes, it's a stepped attenuation of peak flow rates.
So it's critical the amount of water you retain in each one of those basins.
And the amount that's let out too.
That's what I mean, but
The
I mean,
intention is to let out a little less than the head wall can take during a rain event, and those ponds don't do a thing until somewhere along the line we exceed the capacity of that 24-inch head wall pipe, right?
Correct.
In other words, 18 inches of flow upstream or whatever. Then they start backing up, and hopefully the highest pond backs first. Really, it doesn't matter to us if they all proportionately back up, as long as the total capacity is only used when the overflow or the flow capacity of the head wall now is exceeded. That's only at that time are we going to start to back up. In other words, we don't want to start filling ponds where we're only running 12 inches of water into the head wall, which is the way we have it right now.
Isn't that the other way around though, Ken?
Correct.
Aren't we
Yes,
going to
you
stop
want
at
to-
upper ponds?
You want to knock it down as much as possible
Right.
before you hit the head wall. So that's what the ponds function to do.
But you want the head wall to be taking a lot of water all during the storm event. You don't want to start filling ponds when you only have a trickle coming out of the bottom pond. That's a waste of time.
Why?
I mean,
We
because
want to keep, my impression is, we want to keep the water off the head wall.
no, you want to have that as a buffer. That is a
Well-
backup in worst case. In other words, if your storm can't exceed the capacity of the head wall now, you let it run right down through that channel as long as it keeps coming. Only when it rains and all the surface water really starts to hit that system do you start building it up in those retention ponds.
The
Otherwise,
water's not going to back up uphill.
no.
Let's talk about a typical runoff hydrograph, okay?
Right.
Flow rate versus time. Rain starts falling in the basin. It's going to take a while to get from the most extreme end of the basin to pond 3. That's your time of concentration. So what happens when it starts to rain is, okay, time ticks away, your flows start to come up. Pretty soon, maybe 4 to 6 hours later, that peak flow rate hits those basins. What you're trying to do is knock that peak flow rate down on the hydrograph, which may last an hour or two, knock it down through pond 1, knock it down through pond 2. So by the time it hits your pipe down below, which again is sized for a 25-year storm, 25 CFS in this case, that those ponds collectively have worked to knock down maybe a peak flow rate of, I don't know, Alex, what's coming off the basin, 40 to 50 coming into the ponds, and in sequence they will knock it down to 35, 30, 25, let's say.
Right. But during the first 2 or 3 hours of that storm, when the amount of rain coming down through that area is less than that head wall, you want the head wall taking it and getting rid of it. In other words, you don't want to be stopping any water back in any of those ponds if the head wall can take it. It's only when the rate of water flow down through that area exceeds the head wall that you want the ponds to start retaining it.
Well, we have to maintain a channel through there anyway. The Army Corps, you have to maintain flow of water. So in a normal flow of water, that normal flow of water that you're talking about, that's not a storm event, for that first few hours, we'll get out of there. And then after that,
That's right, but
Then
that means
after
that means any water that goes into that top pond, if it's less than the capacity of that head wall, should be flowing right down through to it, so that we've got our capacity when the surge comes.
Yes, and it
Right.
will. So the orifices we're talking about in this new control structure, about a foot and a half off the bottom of the pond. So the pond will fill, again, there's an under drain there, that stuff will seep in to maintain the normal flows. As soon as that pond 3 comes up and it hits those orifices, it'll start taking all the water. Unless and until the flow rate on that hydrograph exceeds the capacity of those orifices, then it'll start to ride. And again, what you're trying to do is fix that rate in those orifices,
To match the head wall.
knock it down to
Right.
not exceed
Okay.
the head wall pipe capacity, which again,
We've never had anything
is
like that in
25
the past.
CFS.
it's been in.
Correct.
It's generally into the, yeah.
Correct. So when we go back to, do we need phase 2? It's always been, when we model this, phase 2 is gravy. We size the pipe for 25 CFS, okay? It's a 25-year design storm. What we've said is that if you do improvements to these ponds, it will knock down that peak, and for a 50-year storm, to an equivalent that's less than the 25 CFS design for the pipe. So what we're saying is you can buy more you can handle a higher runoff storm if these ponds are cleaned out and have an engineered outfall structure on them.
Okay.
And that hasn't happened.
Are they gonna be racked too, since all this
Yeah, I
garbage that
think,
we've seen come through?
we've got some lessons learned here, based on the wooded basins that are above both ponds 1 and 3. We've talked about putting in some similar installations from what you have, like put a coarse rack up in the channel above the sediment basins. Each of these ponds has got to be designed with a 4-bay, which is going to hold all the gravel, which right now it doesn't, and it's plugged up the pipes. In addition to that, we've talked about putting some type of, posts that would help to catch the heavy stuff in a location that Rick can get to it and easily remove it. Any of the finer stuff, we've also talked about putting smaller racks, if you will, across the top of the 4-bay berm.
How about pipe racks instead of grates? No crossbars to catch stuff?
Just vertical.
Just vertical,
Yeah, that's-
2-inch
yeah.
pipe.
That's what we're
bars. I
talking
mean,
about.
not only that, during the middle of one of these events, when all this garbage comes downstream, we go up there with a garden rake and we can pull the stuff right up out. With a grate, you can't do it, you're screwed. I mean, everything just
There's
flows.
other, stuff like that that's designed for boulders
Yeah.
and bogs.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's opportunity there, and again, I think based on our experiences here, we need to design that type of,
Yeah, either something with a huge amount of surface area that can't plug, or else something that's really easy to clean. An angled rack that's self-cleaning, just the stuff floats up if it's at a steep enough angle.
But we saw the rebar being.
The one behind 23 ain't working.
Destroyed.
That's a disaster. Anything small diameter catches grass. I mean, it was full of grass and weeds and every bit of garbage. So, okay, that's encouraging. But so you're gonna end up doing some excavation on the outlet structures that are there now.
Just the one, just pond 1. The other ones are the existing.
You're gonna just plug those into the 36-inch that's there, basically?
We're gonna excavate a little bit to get that existing 36-inch, and then that will be extended into the structure. Correct.
Okay.
and they'll kind of be set into the berm wall, if you will, inlaid into the wall.
Yeah, I don't know if those are cement walls or not. Are they shale?
No,
or-
I think they're all earth and.
We'll find out.
Some are pretty hard, and I know there's a lot of
I
cement
don't
on the
think
top,
there's
so.
any cement in there.
Did you look at the last storm, Ken? You say 25 years. What was the last storm, the 27th, 28th of June? I mean, is that a 100-year storm? Is that a?
Well, yeah, I got some handouts here. There's a bunch of tables we've looked at and some of the new rainfall data that Joanne Humphreys is circulating, looking at for Grange Hill. I'm gonna put it between a 25 and a 50-year storm. Under normal,
Which means that a 50-year storm, there's a 2% chance we're gonna see that happen again? Is that my understanding? There's a 2% chance we're gonna get that same event.
yes.
I'll take that bet.
And we've had it, I'm just saying,
Right.
that whole
Double down on that
50-year storm concept doesn't hold water.
Where do you get the rainfall data?
The National Climatological Service, or NRCS, there's a couple different
What's the
organizations.
closest weather station to Beechwood Road?
Actually, there's mapping available that you put your pinpoint on Beechwood and it will identify it for you based on different sources.
I think the key is here, Dave, is that, as Ken was talking earlier, we're talking, CFMs here, we're talking the amount of water that's going in there. We're not talking probability here.
Well, that's
So
my
what he's talking about is, what we're doing to make sure that head wall is going to not be overtaxed, if you will. So
Right.
in other words, we're gonna make sure that whatever it is, okay, we're gonna be able to take care of it and slow that water down to the point where that head wall could take that. That's what we're looking to do. Now, this whole thing about 50-year storm, 100-year storm, everything else, those are just probabilities. Doesn't mean that you can't get 3 100-year storms in the same week,
Right.
okay?
But that's the way it's related to everybody. That's how things are
And
gauged.
that's how we model it.
Right,
quite
so
honestly.
the next question is, you're talking about flow rates, and this pipe's gonna flow X. How much rain did we have, and what was the flow rate?
Yeah, I mean, we've had, of the 3 storms, Dave, the middle one was a booger. You know, that was a really tough storm. But before that, you know, when we tried to burn the village down, and the last one that we had, you know, a couple weeks back, there was absolutely nothing significant about those storms. They were, you know, they were quick, they were over with in an hour, and yet we still, you know, the head wall just, everything blew out. So we've got serious concerns. We know the grate is a real problem.
It's having storm after storm after storm that's really the issue, because that ground gets saturated, and that changes the model.
Well, I hope that model would take that into consideration, because every spring, you know, we have saturated ground through the spring season, and after the first hurricane that goes through, or, you know, if we have a wet fall, then we have some really heavy rains after that. This is something that happens every year here. It's not
Well, I
a
disagree with
25-year
you, Dave.
event.
I don't think that the spring we've had has
No.
happened here in a long, long time. And I think this is what Chris is and Ken's getting at. When you have, excuse me, so much water, the littlest amount of rain after that is going to create a lot more force going down to that pipe than what would normally be taken up in an average springtime.
Well, I'd say that we have saturated ground conditions around here a lot of the year, and if it can't accept any more water than those 2 end thunderstorms, we're in real trouble.
Pat, we had rain last night, and I had an inch of standing water in my backyard. An inch.
Now, but let me ask you, Joe, where was that coming from?
Just groundwater. I don't know
Well,
what
I
they
know.
put, I don't know what they put down.
No, but that's what I mean.
But
That ground just can't absorb it, and that's a perfect example, Joe. The ground can't just
No,
absorb.
and I understand
That's coming
that.
down straight on your lawn and just sitting on top because there's no place for it to go. And that's exactly what we're talking about.
But I don't know if during the construction process, they just replaced the clay that was there, and it's just not draining. And I know when they put the pipe in, they put tons of gravel in there, of stone in there, and it's just, I can't grow grass on it, and there's no absorption into the ground at all, and we haven't had rain in over a week, except for last night.
But here's the thing, I don't believe, and I have to go back to the original plans. You know, what we were talking about was running that pipeline down and trying to run a swale down the backyards, okay? I don't believe there was anything mentioned about changing the soil content in the backyards.
No, I'm just saying,
It happened.
the other problem is that, and Rick knows about it, and so does Mel, the existing pipe that I had there was not hooked into the system, which it was supposed to be.
Before or now?
No, it's not there, it's gone.
Where was that?
Just inside my gate at 17 Beechwood. There was a drain, a relief drain for me, for when it did flood, that it was a 4-inch pipe that I could go out, take the cap off of that, and it would relieve a lot of that, and it went out to the street.
And the
that's
contractor
gone?
knew about it.
And the contractor knew about it, and he still knows about it, and I'm still waiting to have it replaced or put back in or whatever. I can show you photos, or Dave Reynolds can show you photos of pictures of my backyard where the pipe used to be, and Rick has seen it.
Do we know about this?
Did it show up on the drawings? I mean, if the contractor knew about it?
Okay.
You saw when we did the walkthrough,
Yes, the
Yeah.
contractor made note of it and acknowledged that it was not connected.
and then a week after
and
that was when
needs
it
to be
started
connected.
raining, so.
So it's on a punch list?
Got a punch list.
Okay, as long as,
When
Have
we had
you
that last
got a hold of
walkthrough.
him
Yes.
recently?
Not recently,
No,
since,
It was on the
since
it was on the 1-year guarantee.
Yeah, we
Right.
were doing a
Inspection that he
walkthrough
did.
for the
Right.
final inspection, and then it rained.
Okay.
So, just to go back, the flow rates that you're discussing would handle what we've seen in terms of rainfall. Can you quantify that or no?
Well, again, I've thrown on the data here
Right.
as to what we use to model this thing.
Okay.
Okay, so the model storm was this 25-year event that had 4.5 inches of rain over a 24-hour period, and we use what's called a type 2 distribution. Again, that's looking at historical.
Is that one of the 3 storms that we had? Does it fit in that slot?
Well, let's go up to the top bullet, because we're talking about flash flooding and conditions in supersaturated. You know, the 6 inches of rain over 5 days, I think, had some influence and changed basically the runoff curve number of
Sure.
the antecedent moisture content of soil. So, to Pat's point, you know, we didn't model that upper grassy area of this basin as a parking lot, and that's essentially what you have. As soon as the water hits it, it's going. It's like Commercial Drive. We use you know, there's a series of 1 through 4 that you use for an antecedent moisture content in the model. 2 is the norm. If you put a 3 in there or a 4 in there, which is super saturated, it's doubling the flows out of the basin. It's extreme, and we just historically have never modeled to that, to that moisture content. To your question, Dave, the 3.21 inches of rain that fell on 6/28 based on chronological data records. If you go down to the bottom table here for extreme precipitation tables, again, I mentioned, it depends on how quickly that 3.21 inches of rain fell. In my mind, it was in a 6-hour period roughly, which would put it at about a 25-year storm. But if you look at the amount of rain that fell over a period of 5 days, it's in the range of a 50-year storm.
I think your data's
over 4
wrong,
days.
Ken. I've collected the stormwater data, the rainwater fall from the Chadwick's weather station up in the Glen. It was monitored by Colgate University. And in a 12-hour period, 8 p.m. June 27th to 8 a.m. June 28th, there was a total of 3 inches. Not 321 or whatever, and that was a 12-hour period. So I'm seeing this storm as a 10-year storm, and I'm looking at your quantitative modifiers of saturation of the ground, which is really we don't have a number to put on if it was a 2, 3, or 4. So I'm just wondering why with a 10-year storm, if there was truly, as measured at the Chadwick station, and I had the data here, emailed from Colgate, 8.8 inches for rain in the month of June, which is an average of 3.85, by the way, so you had more than twice as much. But 3 of it fell during that 12-hour period. You've got a 10-year storm. My question is, why did it go over the wing wall on the lower end on a 10-year storm?
Well, I don't know if we're splitting hairs. I mean, the data I've got here was for New Hartford off the records and NCDC records. I talked to Steve Devan. He had 5. His measurements over his labs was 5.09 inches, 2.26. Rick had reports of over 6 inches up in the hills.
This is the closest
I think we're splitting hairs
certified
over
weather station that I know of. It's up in the Glen and Chadwick, which is probably less than 2 miles from Beechwood. Absolute measure. The data is collected and stored by the hour, by the day. They know how much rain fell in that 12-hour period because it's collected, it's downloaded monthly, and then it's printed in a report. So I'm just wondering if I'm reading your table here right, 3.07 inches in 12 hours is a 10-year storm. Why did the bottom wing wall fail with a 10-year storm?
Well, again, I don't think it failed. I think it got a combination.
I think if you ask the residents,
Well, I know that
If that didn't fail that time, Guy, then I hope it never fails, because that was the worst flow we've ever had. Worst ever.
Why don't we let Ken finish what he was trying to say?
Well, you got to speak truth
To
here.
use the term failure, I think is not a correct application here. The pipe will have passed 25 CFS, okay? We all agreed during, when we modeled this and presented it, we used a 25-year runoff event as best we could model based on what we saw in the field, based on our professional experience and application of the model.
I'm going to come to your defense. When
Regardless.
you designed this, when we went from a corroded 15-inch,
16, I think.
15 inch pipe that admittedly was pretty much a straight shot over to the stream on Woodbury.
Under her house there.
Under the houses, and I mean, there's one catch basin in the line, but other than that, man, it's as the crow flies. What is the capacity of this now new smooth-walled 24-inch pipe in comparison to that? I come up with about 3 times the capacity of what that old system is, ignoring all the zigs and zags we got in the system, and every time it goes into a catch basin, we start from scratch again with velocity, right?
The
Still,
profile jumps a little bit, right?
right. Well,
Hydraulic
I mean,
profile.
that I don't know. You tell me,
Well,
we've got a lot of catch basins in there now, and have we come down to the point where we're back at the 15-inch capacity with this 24-inch system? that doesn't seem possible to me.
No, we kept a smooth trough through and no sump on the bend manhole in the backyard. And then we pick up a much steeper slope when we come off the bottom side of Beechwood, where we grab more runoff coming off the road. So, no.
Is that what
Again,
comes down to debris at that point, though? I mean,
What's that?
The blockage?
Well, yeah, and
that's
that gets
where-
back to
that's where it
Don's
comes
point,
down to.
or question is, yeah, I mean, then look at some of these photos, and I guess I looked to Rick as well. Rick was out there with boots on the ground during the event. There was a lot of debris that came down that plugged the ponds, that in turn plugged the pipe. So that was part of it. And again, I come back to the fact that the basis of which our model, did not probably accurately reflect the antecedent moisture condition that you're seeing up in this basin.
My
Okay,
concern is
let's
that these,
change the question now to the future. Is phase
Lessons
2,
learned.
if we have another 10-year storm or 20-year storm, 25-year storm, with the phase 2 done, are we going to experience the same level of devastation below? Is it going to overrun the wing wall and do exactly what it did before?
We cannot guarantee this is not going over, because that pipe has a 25 CFS capacity. And I can't sit here and tell you that you're never going to see a runoff event, nor did Al indicate that 2 years ago when we designed this, that we're not going to have another overflow. If you look at town design standards, pipe systems in the town are designed for 10-year storm. Beyond that, development has to have swales and a safe passage for floodwaters, and it's in your town code. The suggestion I have here is, let's look at, if this were to jump again, jump the head wall, how are we going to get away from damaging houses down below? I believe there's ample room in these backyards to push the topography to keep this away from the houses. And I think that's something that should be looked at, to get it down to Oxford, to get it back into the channel. Because the last thing you want to do is upsize this pipe and dump it to the bottom of Woodbury, which has capacity restrictions on its own right now, and has houses down below there that took the brunt of both Beechwood and Woodbury.
correct me if I'm wrong, when this thing was designed, we were avoiding all that because we couldn't secure all the swales, this, that. When we walked this route, we were guaranteed that this would remedy the situation. I mean, Dave, you walked it with us, Don, you walked it, Rick, you walked it with us, and you were getting hit with all kinds of questions, and you guys assured us that there would be no further need, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, for any type of swales or whatever in the backyard. Now, I do agree with what you're saying about pushing the water further back. But as we sit here now, my house depreciates. Every time there's a rainstorm, I'm scared to leave the house. Sandbags currently sit along my house. My foundation is wearing away. The water is finding its way further and further up my house and down the cellar.
So
And
you're down below.
I'm on 9.
So you're down below where we make the bend.
Kind of at the
down
end
below
of
Wetzel's.
the, kind of at the end of the rainbow, yeah.
after the catch basin at the east end of my property, you know.
The topo starts to turn into
the
your.
Mississippi turns into
Everything
the.
turns into my house.
The whole
the pool
thing,
in the backyard?
the pool in the backyard, which is ready to wash away, but that's on me, I'm sure, because the town's in no position to take care of anything. My cellar's ruined, and the more, you know the whole deal, when something floods out, it's terrible. But what's discouraging to me is sitting here knowing that we're this far along in this project and we're getting devastated. 3 times, 4 times since the project's been done. It's very discouraging. And you're sitting here as an engineer, I don't know what your exact position is, and saying you're kind of satisfied with what you've done, and that's kind of discouraging from a homeowner standpoint, saying, you gotta be kidding me.
I'm not satisfied with it. What I'm
I'm not holding you personally.
I'm not holding you, yeah, I wanna get this
It's
thing
just
resolved.
frustrating
but-
because it's worse,
We're
it's
trying to help
worse
you out
than
here as
ever.
well.
I understand that.
I understand everybody's upset, but I'm trying to explain the basis on which we designed this to Don's
But
last
sometimes
point.
things look good
Moving
on paper,
forward,
and it's not.
Yeah, you can say
happening.
2,500, you could say 200-year storm. If my
relevant.
cellar
You're still
floods, it
getting
floods.
Exactly.
No, that's the bottom line. And the other thing, Pat, I mean, he mentioned about swales or what, I don't know what you're talking about, how you're gonna accomplish pushing things back.
We agree with that.
I agree with you, but you know the reality of that guy getting that done is? I mean, we've been at this for 3
Well,
administrations.
I think as you recall, this was originally proposed in the original plan.
It was.
the swale
It was,
those
you're
backyards.
absolutely correct, and the town was reluctant to secure the easement from one individual, and that's all water under the bridge, no pun intended. But I'm saying to have to go through that measure again, Pat, it's like an act of God. You know as well as I do, it's gonna be years
The
again.
original plan was
Well-
to go straight down through the backyards with the pipe.
With a pipe.
Straight
No,
down.
because even when B&L was brought on board, I know, and whether it was here at a board meeting or whether it was them, there was talk of putting swales in those backyards going down.
Yeah, that was the
That
plan
never
at
came
one
to
time.
fruition because people didn't want swales in their
Right.
backyard.
But the pipe,
Okay.
we were assured that the pipe would exceed the ability of the swale. It would be
Well-
a better option than
Well,
the swale.
but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was when the project was completely finished, that this would handle the water. Now that you know.
Well, that's
now
right,
that-
phase two has to happen.
Correct. And I think that now that you've actually started some type of work on those ponds up there, I would hope that we would get some relief.
And that's the whole object, Joe.
I agree.
Okay, now here's the thing, and I don't mean to make light of this thing, because in my opinion, there's nothing worse than flooding, if your house gets flooded. But the common sense approach to this, I mean, you've got a pipe, as Dave pointed out, you've got a pipe now, a structure now, that's bigger, just holds more than what the old one was, okay? Problem is, we ran into natural circumstances that, at least in my opinion, from what I hear, we've never encountered before in this region. Second of all, I think once we get, we change the map, right? Once we get up into this other area, into pond 1, 2, and 3, and I gotta be honest with you, I went up, and this is the first time I looked at pond 2, and that's huge. I tell you, it's big up there. And from what I understand, we didn't walk up to 3, but 3's even bigger.
Three's
Okay.
either the same
And-
size or bigger, yeah.
But I will say, it needs a lot of cleaning up. You know, you can tell by the area, okay, the diameter, that these things are big, they're gonna hold a lot of water. But they need a lot of cleaning out. I don't know if they've ever been cleaned out.
Excuse me one minute, if it happens
Sure.
during an event though, Pat, we can't expect Rick to run up there and clear things out as these events happen. I mean, the town's a big place.
No, and that's why, you know, I've talked to the engineers, and one of the things we talked about right after the storm came down, it wasn't at a board meeting, it was a meeting we had, and what I said was, and I think Ken started relating to this, we've got to start designing for how do we catch that debris? How do we catch the debris? Because as I said to Ken and Chris, you know, I can't put, you know, Rick up there, and Rick can't put his guys up there 24/7 the minute it starts raining. That's what Ken's looking at now. Now, we've looked at that down on Woodbury, and I believe we've come up with some viable solutions where we're going to put some, whatever you want to call them, levels up in there that are going to catch debris, let them come around to come back down in there. And I'm not going to talk for Kent, but it's those types of things that we're going to be looking at when we get up in ponds 2, 3, and coming down to 1, okay? But you're absolutely right. In my opinion, from what I've seen, not only on Beechwood, but definitely on Woodbury, Whitetail, you know, the biggest factor here was debris. You know, these things get clogged up. You can't be everywhere at once.
I gotta disagree with you, Pat. That pipe was still flowing, and it got breached off to the left. If you're looking at the V like this, it breached off to the left-hand side. The pipe was still taking water. They walked up there. So it's not like that thing was clogged off and all of a sudden it started breaching
Right.
over.
I was up there with Rick when it already had breached, and it had not reached the top pipe.
So it was still flowing.
Breached prior to that. It wasn't halfway up that catch basin.
And I would add that water
You
comes
talking
around.
right at the head wall?
Yeah.
Water comes around the head wall without the head wall being full.
Right, it's not, if that filled up with debris and stuff and it went over, I'd say, hey, that thing was clogged.
The smaller
This
pipe
thing's
was
still
not
taking
full.
it.
Smaller pipe
The
wasn't
smaller
even.
pipe was about half full, if that.
Well,
Yeah.
that was later on, but it wasn't even up to the smaller pipe before
When
it
it
breached.
was breaching, and that's where the river starts down.
And
Can we focus that back down into that?
We have water going around the head wall because the head wall's been moved 25 or 30 feet upstream from where the old one was. The old one was farther down, and there's a berm that runs south along Zamiello's property. And that berm acted like a dam, and all the water that came off Will's Drive for 200 yards upstream until you get to the first pond used to go in a little stream. It doesn't go in the stream anymore. It runs side of the stream over the little berm and down through our backyards.
Can you address that?
Oh, in line with the current head wall, you're saying?
No, side of the current head
No,
wall,
I
you know
know,
that
that's
ponding
where-
area out there? That used to go up against the berm and flow out the old head wall. There's all sandbags that Rick put there eons ago.
Well,
They're still
yeah.
there that were a dam at the old head wall. So all the water that came down from upstream, whether it was through the stream or off to the side there, that came off all those huge backyards on Wills Drive, made it to the stream and the head wall and was gone unless the head wall overflowed.
And what you're saying is that's coming down now.
It all came from
going
the sides
back up-
and
up
That's right.
the side of the
It
head.
actually jumps over the little berm next to the head wall and goes through our backyards. And there's a lot of water coming off of those backyards. That's a huge area there.
Have you been up there in the last week and a half?
Yeah, now we've got,
Since
Now we
Kevin
took that-
did the work up there?
We took the gravel up that came down
Yeah.
and built that berm.
well, that's right. Now we've got a stream with high walls that further sequesters that water over there. It can never get into the stream and it goes
So now
down
the
our
water from the
backyard.
backyards is still
No,
gonna
it's
go
gonna
down to their
stop.
backyard.
That's
I-
right.
I'm
So it
following
basically
what you're saying.
extended our backyard situation. Water's always come from
So
Wills
you're not
Drive
catching
over
that
our
water
way.
anymore. I got you.
Right.
The,
And I don't know how you ever get that water back into the system.
well, as I
Good
recall,
luck.
we had to put a solid manhole cover on the
Need a
bed
catch
manhole,
basin.
which there's no reason why that can't be a graded cover and put
Which-
that down in the backyard there where.
I don't think you understand what
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
No,
Well, that means the water ends up going through, 3 backyards in the Lucas drain. Well, that's, I'm
What
sorry.
they're talking about, Ken, is that
Right.
pipe's not filling, it's going over the sides of the head wall. How do we prevent that?
Right, there's other drainage coming right through
Really?
here.
I mean, you fellas came up great.
Yeah, Tobo, that's missing the entrance.
Yeah, we gotta look at that. I mean, we can create a damming structure there.
Yeah, I
But
think
you're
it's
gonna have a pond.
earthwork is burning, which it sounds like Rick's already started.
Water's coming from this direction,
It
Why it's down there.
here, and then goes this
All the
way.
way up to the first pond, all those backyards,
Well, you
right
go around the
there,
side.
comes down here and runs right through here and then goes
Richmond.
around.
Right.
That's
It never-
why
it
we
never
went
makes
up
a
in there a
difference.
week
It's
and a half
coming
ago.
from this
The
direction.
bank
Gravel
just
came
changed.
down from pond one, we
This
did that
side,
gravel.
well, yeah, it's coming
we made
from
a
this
berm
side.
on the
That
right
tree
side,
line was always
where
a
the water
dam.
was going around.
And the
We
construction
got a
removed
berm
some.
now that's about this
Well, you
high.
could-
And you moved.
So that's
up
forcing
the
it
grade.
forward.
Another impoundment.
Let's hold on, because Rick was just bringing up some.
I think we
point.
built
Rick,
that
why
up.
don't you go over that again, so they.
We took that gravel bed that came out of pond one that was bedded there.
Yeah.
That's what caused the water to go to the right side.
Yes,
Because it was that gravel bed. We took that gravel bed out and we took the dirt out and cleaned that channel up.
but before that happened,
Oh, before that happened, yes.
it's still a pond over there that was overflowing going down the
Right,
backyard.
but we want to tell you
Just from
what Rick's
surface.
done already.
But since
and what
then,
we're gonna do.
We put a berm down there where it was going off into the woods, going around the wall and into your backyards.
Yeah, so ponds.
So now we've brought that down a good 10, 12 feet, maybe? So it should, and this last rainstorm, it hasn't been very big, because we haven't had it, but the last rainstorm was containing that.
Well, yeah, anything
Back
that comes
in that
out,
creek
anything
bed.
that comes out of pond one ends up in the stream.
Right.
Yeah, I'm saying everything side of the stream ends up in our backyards, and that's a long ways up there to Mr. Doherty's property where
You
the
know where that
water's
old
all
fence
coming
line
out.
is that goes up where the guys got the canoes and boats and all that crap?
Yeah.
I don't know if that can be built up, that might pull that into that area. I don't know.
Ken, do you understand?
I know what he's saying.
It's rain off, it's
I mean,
running
you-
off from the yard.
The yard.
From Wells Drive.
From the stream.
That's what,
Right.
I
What
know where
Dave's
he's
saying is
coming
with
from.
that berm that Kevin built up there, that water's not gonna make it into the creek. No, it's just gonna go around it. I don't know, I don't know what
The
the
rear
answer
yard
is.
is a Wills
It's this
Drive.
little piece of the basin
Which are
here
big.
that
Those guys
is
are
now
big.
going.
There's- It really, if you go over on Wills Drive, from everybody's house back flows our way. There's a huge amount. There were sheets, in this bad storm, there was an inch of rain, water coming right off of those hills. Never could get into the creek.
Was any part of what we designed intended to deal with that?
No,
Like a backyard catch basin.
no,
or
we didn't
something.
have that problem then.
No,
You didn't have that problem?
our
before?
backyards have never been this wet.
No,
I mean,
because
right
the
now.
structure
Where
was
the
further
catch
downstream.
basin is, was further down Beechwood Road by probably what, 10 feet, Dave?
30 feet. I scale it 30 feet on the drawings, 25 or 30 feet. That's a
Can
long
you
way.
just show him on the map so we're talking about the same thing? Because this is,
Yeah.
it would
So
change.
the structures here, this
Nothing you're gonna do is gonna
pipe
change that.
probably used to come out.
No.
there.
Nothing.
There.
unless you channeled it and put it into
Dave,
the
what
catch
do you
basin.
say?
Right now, our head wall's up here.
Right.
That's the only way
Right,
you
you're saying-
Other than
This was
down-
down- this was
other than building a
downgrade,
wall.
downstream, lower, and there's literally, there is a dam across Zamiello's property, and her property line,
Yeah, I know.
goes up a tree line, and
What do you
always
say?
all the water
Coming down here.
from all these houses up here. Before, you know, there's pond one, but everything between pond one and down here, all this rainwater ended up going to the stream. It doesn't make it in the stream now, there's a bank on the stream, so it all ponds.
Why isn't it making it in the stream?
Because it's below the.
Even if the berm,
It's below the bank.
was
Natural-
not there, it still doesn't make
Natural,
it
if you
in.
look at the liner, okay, the natural flow pattern is going.
Right, but what did we do to change that?
We changed the head wall.
This
moved up grade.
This structure was put here, and that additional pipe was put here, and the head wall was put up here. Just move that.
I knew that was coming.
Alex, is there a structure?
Jesus, can you want it done?
Structure one right there?
That's phase 3.
I think Mrs. Zamiello will probably allow us to build a dam there of some sort that can
That's an animal.
keep the water there, and then how you get it into the system, if you get it into the, to
Hear
the
that?
stone that's around the pipe or something, so that it slowly bleeds off. And then also, if we have a serious
Under drain.
overflow upstream, it won't end up plowing right down through our backyards, and, you know, it acts as another retention pond there. It's a real low spot,
Yeah.
but it used to drain, now it
There's a
can't.
structure there where the old pipe used to come out of the depression there. You put a structure there and we bend to change direction. We'll take a look at that. There may be opportunity to put a grate on that to basically act as a catch basin.
I mean, the grate,
Solid manhole cover.
I'm sorry,
Have you seen that already, or is that?
Yeah, the
sound
grates
like a
and
possibility?
yeah, the grate that's below the head wall is just a clean out, right?
Well, just behind it.
Yeah, that's not meant to be a drain.
But there should be another structure in Zamella's backyard.
Down.
uh,
From that wall?
Yeah, about 50 feet down. I think that'd be.
Is that how?
Not that I've seen.
No.
Change it. It's buried. It's buried.
It's-
Oh, it's buried?
You got a
Buried
catch basin at the
so
head wall.
it's not-
We
right?
do, we do. Further down from that, there's another, because they took a turn, so it's buried, you won't see it at surface.
Seriously,
Now I have 6
why was
easements.
that
right?
necessary?
So we have 3.
Instead of taking right from that top catch basin, why didn't it go straight down? Gotta ask.
I thought Zamiello's the first one to sign these.
We got, that was under phase 1.
And I-
Phase 1.
I have to say that she couldn't make this meeting, and she is not happy with the amount of time that this is dragging on, and her place is kind of being torn up. She's been really great to this point, but I think her
See the one right
Her-
there,
her
right there,
patience,
where the sand is?
yeah, at the head wall. It's
Do
on
you
the
think
head
she
wall.
would give us whatever, or, well, we already have the easement, so.
Yes, yes, but this that you have to build up is not in the easement pathway, I don't believe. And we're talking about going south. There's an old one there. I'm afraid it's right on the tree line, and I don't know if you can really build it up without
Well,
hurting the
I mean,
trees.
I don't even know if we have to do that, if what Ken is saying is, and what Chris was saying is to unbury this here, take this solid cover off and put a grate in there. So now as this water comes down here, it's gonna end up in this grate. You're not gonna have a wall there, at least you're gonna have someplace for this water to go.
I'll be interested to see
Yeah.
what we can.
I didn't even know that was there.
Buried.
It's in the depression right there. So, yeah, we moved it, yeah, it was up there when they were putting. Just 50 feet right there. So, we moved what? We filled that hole in the catch basin with the structure, yes. It's the one that sits right there. So, again, if you look at the drainage, which I think you're talking about, you're pulling it right there. And it gets down
Yeah,
to this
fit in with no
depression.
water coming out of
Filled
it.
in and we moved the head
100.
So,
I thought it was worse than that, I'm surprised that it's.
Well, there's really no water in
by the
there
head wall.
to flow, but I bet when it's full, I bet you.
You know, again, if we're trying to put a berm
Gush.
here,
Well, I don't think there's gonna be a problem,
Map
because
up
she's
there.
already saying
Shows
that the
it
bank is
absolutely
deteriorating
all
up there, so if we go in and
It shows it perfect on there.
build this
How's that
back
got
up,
to show?
the berm,
The
and
acreage?
we do it.
Acreage.
I don't have a problem, I'll go and talk with her, we can talk with her.
I'd like to talk about that at some point.
well, the other opportunity would be trying to catch
It's a
this.
great idea, I
higher
understand how
elevation,
you're gonna pull it off
Kind of
effectively.
wrap this berm.
Well, there's,
Priority.
if you go up there, if we go up there and look at it, I think you'll see there's a natural, where this has been there for 40 years. This berm is there. and it's deteriorating, because every time it overflows, it just erodes it away. Right, so you might be able to, unfortunately, this will never drain because it's below the outlet to the head wall. And so yeah, you'll have to go downstream and.
Unless we pull an under drain off of that structure, a French drain, basically, drain off any pond water.
Right.
Well, what's the best scenario to go with? Because if we do go up there and Mrs. Emilio Head says, hey, whatever you do, just fix it, which way is the best way to go here?
Don't compromise a berm here, keep that in place to hold the water in there and force it into the head wall and prevent a blow by.
Okay.
And then see if we can get that underground into the structure. We can either overland into the structure or we have the small undergrade stuff.
Regarding everybody's backyards too, when this construction was done, part of the problem why everybody's got such problems is all the gravel was brought to the surface. And I know in my yard, there's 2 feet of topsoil in some places. There was a lot of topsoil there. It was never replaced. So now we've got all that clay, and there's tons of clay down there. It was brought up to the surface, all the way down. That's why these people, they got rock really right in the surface. It's not growing grass. And my next door neighbor is real happy with the way his looks too. But that sounds like a reasonable solution, but there's an awful lot of water that came down the side, the head wall of that. My concern is also that we've got a lot of sediment into the system. I mean, our head wall would have taken anything that was that size or bigger, and I wonder if, some of your concrete structures now are loaded with silt or rock or whatever that might reduce the flow, and that's why we're, having problems with a smaller storm. I don't know. Has anybody pulled the grate and looked in the first catch basin to see if there's anything in there?
Out of the road, I don't know.
No.
No need to, right? I don't know.
Well, we can, right?
Right.
I guess back to the gentleman talking earlier, if you look at the LiDAR topo again, topography always, as you get past these yards where we make the bend, the natural flow path is down through here, and as soon as you get down to this area, the topo starts to push everything towards the houses.
My next door neighbor is John Stratton, upstream of me, between Luker and me.
Right at the curve.
Has agreed to have a hump in his backyard where the natural swale has always been removed, just move some dirt around, which would continue the swale upstream from me. I've got a great swale in my backyard that tries to keep it back. Unfortunately,
Pushing it out away
upstream,
from the house.
all this, all this non-swale upstream, in fact, half the grading looks to me like it, after it was done, moved the water closer to the homes upstream of me. So it's fighting to stay at the back, and then it hits this hump in his backyard, floods up against his house, my house, and after my house, it's down into my neighbor's basement. So if we can kick that back, I don't know if Rick's got a half an hour with a front loader or something, just to move this much dirt in one area of his backyard. We got a place to put it and everything that'll make the swale hopefully keep it back. John Stratton's never had as much water up against his house. He said, I actually got some water in my basement this time. And he's been there for about 40 years.
Clear this out. Send it on this one.
I hate to mention it because I don't want to make it sound like, oh, let's do everything by swale here.
Once it gets here, it's coming right down.
But it's going to help in the short term. If we get another storm in the interim.
Chances of getting twice as much rain in a month are lower than, pretty, whatever. Could happen again, Dave.
I don't like to gamble.
Well, yeah, no, I don't like to gamble
And
either.
anything I can do to improve the odds.
I don't either, but I'll put Tony on that.
But chances are that everything's gonna be wonderful for a while because we've really had a lot of precipitation this year. And, the odds are low. So that, I'm not sure that what we do is going to have measurable success because I don't know if it's going to have the rain to test it.
You want to see what he's suggesting? You want to show Rick what?
Yeah. Just looking at the natural topo here. This starts to push it this way. This clears
he's got a huge bump. This is where the natural swale used to come in through here.
Yeah.
He's got a big bump here, right about in this area. And he's got a great place to just push the dirt up here into where his pool no longer exists. So we've got, I mean, we're not talking about a lot. Something that's a foot high in that area forces the water right up against the homes. So it's up against his home, comes across, goes in mine, goes down between these two here, and flows right over into his basement. And it comes around here, and then the next place where it goes in here. If we keep it back here, in this area, you know, we might end up, you know, basically jetting past. And I know the Kennedys are to the point where, you know, if we can do something in their backyard, you know, through here, they go for it. They're talking about, you know, what their options are for themselves if this continues. I mean,
Well, is there something we could do, and start up here instead of down here? Start pushing.
Yeah,
yeah, we could let Rick look, if you guys are gonna come up
We're
here,
gonna
you
go
can take
for
a
a walk
peek
up
at it.
there.
Right. I mean, this is like nothing to do, and I think it'll do a lot for me. It'll keep it off my, even John Stratton's, and it'll keep it away from people downstream from me, the Kennedys and whatnot. If we can keep it out far, literally, you're talking in the middle of our backyard instead of up against the house.
Where does it go, Dave, after it leaves those 4 or 5 parcels and headed towards Oxford Road? What's the impact there?
I don't know. I mean, this was the first time that,
What's on the other
who was
side?
at the bottom of Sherman's at the bottom of Beechwood got flooded.
First place on the,
Yes. Yes.
Second place.
No, no.
Yeah, on
On
Beechwood.
Oxford, first place on Beechwood on the left, going up.
right.
Right, that's
Yeah.
Sherman.
Is that gonna now run into the Oxford
Well,
Road?
that's what I'm saying, is that
That's the
gonna,
first time in water.
Well, it'll probably add to it.
Since
They have-
since
Yeah,
2000,
right.
since
And
2001.
we can't
Right.
let it come, well, just cut the road and make that bigger.
well, that's, you know, it's good to move it away from your house and your house and your house.
Right.
But if it's impacting downstream.
Well, if anything, it just keeps it farther back on everybody's backyard.
Right, but does it end up in Oxford Road Grocery, that property down there?
Yeah, right
County
between,
would let us
between
go.
there and the
Because
house.
when they came in, they were having a huge
So
problem.
my point is now's the time to put an intercept in the county system, and if we gotta cut the road or go under the road.
Well, it goes under
The iron is hot right now in terms of all the municipalities cooperating, state, county. This, you know, if we gotta cut the road or we gotta go far under the road, again,
You've already
The
talked.
concern
Yeah,
is,
Rick talked to
Ken,
Dennis
once we
Davis
get
in
down
town.
here, what does this do
In
to
the
Oxford?
cup it goes underneath
Does it
Oxford
create
Road.
a
It's
problem
short.
down there?
They're not, they
No, 'cause
just
we-
line
Rick,
it,
you and I-
that's it, they're done.
Maybe down the road here, we've had complaints. How
It's
this-
their
We're complaining
road.
about this development
My
out
point
here.
is the iron
Not
is-
ours, and
Well,
they
the
were
other,
down there
the other
there.
problem, Steve, is that it runs down to Harrogate and it stands behind the library.
Even if it
Those
does,
people don't want more.
they're gonna say.
that's my point exactly, moving the problem, let's get an intercept.
So I guess we need to not only look
Instead of
at
just
this,
moving it
but I
down the
mean,
road.
you know, to me, it's easier looking at that. Somehow we've got to do something down here, once we get down there.
Ponds.
Now, this still slow. That it's fine. We're gonna find.
Originally, we were gonna cut the Oxford Road twice, right? And they said no,
Right.
so.
Maybe
Well, it's
down
a
the
county.
line.
I understand, and they wouldn't let us cut it the second
Well, I
time.
think
We
that
did it,
was good.
that's right.
Yeah, but
This
where are
is
you
the
gonna
time
take it,
to
where are you
push
gonna take it when it gets there?
Well, that's what I'm asking the engineers, what do we do once we get down there?
Because that runs down to Harrogate Road, you know, Harrogate and the property, the Leatherwater that developed.
Behind the library.
Yeah, behind the library along Harrogate, and that's.
So he was willing to take care of any problem we might have.
I was gonna say, that'll solve the development
We'll give
problem.
you a development problem, take care of our water.
It's the last thing we need, more house.
That's the library.
So where,
Yeah.
well, everything is coming out from here down.
From here down.
Where'd that go? It's going right across.
It's, no, it's going and turning, coming down here.
And that continues here, here, here. So again, it looks like everything that's going there now is hitting that.
And Dia brought me over to Woodbury was, the county cut already was an Oxford Road, that cut already ran all the way down to Point Creek. And that's the idea of getting all the water there over to Woodbury and down. And that's still the best plan.
So you're going through here,
And then you gotta
going
take
back,
this
or
problem.
it's going up the houses and going
You
down.
can get an easement.
Maybe what it's
And
at,
then
on
back.
Oxford Road.
Literally, I think, 10
You gotta do
feet,
something,
regrading
because
here.
you can't put it probably down below there, it's sent down, there's nobody any favor.
Well, that's what I'm
We have
concerned
enough,
about.
we have enough.
I don't, you know, I'm not a
We work with
hydrologist,
down here, well, maybe.
but every time you go to a catch basin, you start from scratch. Yeah,
Right,
but
something like.
realistically,
Or you want to harm soil, but you're in the land, slow down.
no, they're gonna control the flow out of it, they're gonna beam it down and put in a pipe that goes up vertically and catches all this water.
Yeah,
Supposedly
I mean,
catch all
it's
the
not like
garbage.
we're taking anything, we're just, whatever you want to call
It's
it.
steeper, we get into steeper slope. So,
We slow it
talking
down a
about
little bit.
defining, yeah, if you want to armor,
Normally, I
to
would
slow down before it gets, it's getting there now.
If we're going to do
Move it out from
things,
there and push it.
I'm sorry, originally it was gonna be the 50-year storm, remember?
we do something to slow it down, even though it's all going down, we do something, not only for you back there, but also for down here.
9. I hear 9.
3 months done.
Keep it here again, so you're not creating a problem, you're pushing it here. And again, it's an emergency pathway for extreme events.
Run it by me again.
It's an emergency, you're just reinstating natural flow on the still.
Okay. But what I'm getting from the residents here, like Luke, Joe, and from myself, is this is happening now, and it's not an emergency situation. You know, they want this water now because even under
He had rain last
the
night,
least,
instead of puddle, right, Joe?
Yeah.
the least of circumstances, they're getting puddling. So whatever we do, it's not an emergency, it's a permanent type thing to keep that water out, away from their home.
Yeah, but
Right, we're
that's,
trying to prevent property
but
damage.
that's just in case everything up above
Right.
overflows. If
Yeah.
everything up above is designed right, you know.
No, but
in
last
10
night
years,
it
it's
didn't
gonna come down-
overflow from up
No,
above.
but
That's just
well,
standing
that's
water, and it-
standing water,
and
that's not a river flowing down
Right.
the backyard. When let's
Is
go
your
up
drain gonna
above.
take care of that, Joe, if we put that back or not?
We'll release some of it. What I'm eventually gonna have to do, once everybody decides what they're gonna do, is I'm gonna have to get some real topsoil in there, because they didn't put any topsoil.
But that pipe's gotta be connected.
That pipe has to.
That was there originally, and the contractor acknowledged.
You know, this is a great opportunity, scarf off that garbage, you know, put something.
I know.
decent on it.
I mean, that's
And
all
at
it
the
is,
same-
garbage. It's growing mold, the crap they put down.
I was gonna say,
At the same time, you can keep the water away from the house if they dug it down.
well, I mean, I guess that would come to the question, just leave it as possible, or was it?
Exactly.
I think it's-
Right around here,
Some of it was,
Yeah, but not, I didn't see a lot of.
no, there wasn't a lot. Some-
This water here is coming down.
Gate on
But that's changed again.
This is the word.
No.
Changing the grade.
And all this stuff down.
Oh, yeah, you know what?
Rip right out,
Yeah,
right
very
out.
green. Yeah, as a matter of fact, there it is right there.
That- Basically, what you're doing is.
Yeah, no, that's right back there, really.
And send it down
Yeah.
the pipe. Problem
And he
is,
was.
they're
Now we
saying
get
that-
water here.
It's a river, it's a
Right.
Yeah,
No, some smaller streams.
the rip wrap on the Woodbury Street behind.
Yeah, he was in agreement. It
Yeah,
wasn't, it wasn't.
Oh, that pipe's using, this is the open gate right here.
Everything was
Right, right there.
And then it rained and changed the whole thing.
Whenever,
All everything here is going this way.
just to the left of this proposal, that would alleviate all this problem. If all I went out and just pop that cap out there. Take
So
care
if
of
they
it.
put that back,
So you gotta get someone on.
Yeah, yeah. That's just, I think that's a little better picture, but it's right in the middle of this, and that's here. Because Scardina's
So I guess that ends up being the key. is-
shed is right there, and it's right, just, it was,
Get it to go down.
it was like 4 feet from the fence.
Before we run out of daylight, so.
Well, it's the only way you're gonna keep it on the zone. Then we're just gonna have to deal with it down on Oxford Road, but as you say, one way or the other, it's getting down Oxford Road anyway. Either down Beechwood or down the backyard.
Rick, have you been dealing with the contract?
On Beechwood? Yes,
Is he coming back?
yes.
When?
And you just got, everything got swamped here with all the rain
Who is
and
the
water.
contract?
No, what's,
Alex Hunter.
Alex Hunter, yes. there was a punch list that was made prior to all these storms, and you're just coming back to take care of that punch list.
All right, well, if
But
you
the-
need me to do anything to try and move them along, let me know.
All right,
A lot of the items on the punch list went downstream.
exactly.
Except for his drain.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
there was a
Yes.
lot, and the last time we were up in the backyards when Mel was up there, he said he was, as soon as he got done with his construction project he was on, he was gonna come back and take care of that because the front yard, there's still a huge spot where they changed the oil on the hydraulic oil. That I can't grow grass there unless I dig about 2 feet down and put topsoil.
You just have to do a load of topsoil.
Well, actually, it was supposed to drop off 3 yards of topsoil too in the spring, but it's July now.
Might be
We'll call
thankful that
him
he didn't
tomorrow.
get it earlier, Joe.
I'm gonna get my own,
Take
because if it's the
contract,
same
yeah.
crap that he put down in the backyard, I don't want
If
it.
you have a problem, call her.
I will.
We'll get on it.
I will.
These are pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you didn't use a quality topsoil, which I gotta say, Dave, in the front of your house there along where, whatever.
My front's the same as
It was
Dave's.
just, it looked like the Sahara Desert for a while. It was growing wheat grass.
I've added topsoil and seeded it 4 times.
Right, right. No,
Yeah.
it was,
That's the least of my worries.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we go up there?
Yeah,
Yeah, but-
I was just gonna see if anybody had any other questions before we head up there, and we'll take a look at it, and see. Nothing? Okay, we'll reconvene up, behind Moncel's house there, I guess, the easiest way.